Today we're going to talk about how I age my papers without doing the coffee dye bath, where you have to take a good part of a day and dip everything. So I'm just going to show you that if I wanted something quickly to look aged, how I do that. So in my last video, I had shown how I made this paper look aged and got the coffee rings, and when it had started out looking like this and ends up looking aged like that. So I had mentioned if you wanted to see how I do that to let me know in the comments, which several of you did. So I'm going to show you how I achieved this just with this sheet of paper without having to get out a coffee dye bath and dunk papers. It is really very simple, and this will probably be a quick video. I'm going to just show you a couple different techniques. And you will need some different inks. Can be the oxide or the inks, but the permanent inks will not work very well for this process, for most of the process. Then I also just have some water standing by, and then I have a spray bottle with some coffee that you guys know this is always on my desk. Although my other sprayer broke and I had to pick up another one. Not crazy about the pink, but when you're at the Dollar Tree, you get what you get. And then you also need a paintbrush. I have kind of a fat fluffy one here, and then I just have a small one. And then you'll need a dauber, or I'll show you something else we can use in its place. So the first thing I'm going to do is just show you on something small like the index cards. This is what these had started out looking like, and I was just sitting here kind of playing around, and I will show you how I achieved this in a couple of different ways. And then we'll do one on a book page also. You can do this on a bigger sheet like I did for that journal. It just takes a little bit longer. And then you can also do like this one. I will probably save. This has just been my sheet I've been working on, but this I will probably save, and then I can cut this into tags, or what's on the flip side? Yep, it's getting aged on the back too. So I will definitely save my scrap paper that I'm using on my work surface, and then can use that either in as a signature page in a journal, or cut it up into tags or journaling cards. Okay, so I'm going to show you several different ways that you can achieve different looks, and then you can put them together any way that you like. So first, I'm just going to start with, let's just start with the dauber and ink. I have walnut stain. You could use anything. I've used the vintage photo works well for this also. The other one I have laid out is the frayed burlap. So for this, I'm just very lightly making just circular motions, and I can tell I need to change the dauber on this too, because it's leaving little pieces of sponge behind. But you want to be careful when you come over onto the paper that you are being very light-handed and just very gently going around in circles, or you can also go back and forth. If you come over really heavy-handed, then you're going to end up with like circles. So you'd want to make sure that you're coming in light and not coming in hard, or you're going to get like definite rings. Okay, so we're going to just lightly cover this. And I keep turning it while I'm doing it, so it's not all going in the same direction. And now for the smaller pieces that are probably going to be used as one journaling card or one tag and not really cut, then I like to go a little heavier on the corners. If it's a bigger piece that you're going to be cutting apart, then it doesn't really matter. But I just try to go a little heavier over, not pushing heavier, but putting more ink, more layers of the ink. I'm not pushing harder. All right. So we have a nice base on this one. So one of the techniques that we can do next is just put your ink out. This is a glass work surface. If you don't have that, you can just use like a dish, like a glass plate that you no longer care about, you can do that, or you can use like a piece of, this is just from the back of, that you peel off of the stamps, the clear stamps. So just something like that would work also, or you could cover something in clear wrap. But you want to get some of that down. And then the first, I'll show you, we're going to just use plain water. I just have water in a little cup here, and I'm just using my fluffy brush, and I'm just dipping it around in this ink. And this is why you don't want to use the permanent ink, because it will just sit there and not do anything. So then I'm just going to come over here and just make some puddles and some marks on it. Again, turning it. And then you can also, well, I'll show you that in the next one. All right, so we'll get that down, and then I'm going to turn the dryer on this. Okay, so we have a neat effect going on there. So I like to build layers. So the first one we did with the dauber, the second one we kind of patted around with the brush. So now I'm going to, you can even switch colors here. So let's do a little of the frayed burlap. And for that, I'm going to, again, I'll just use the water. I'll show you some then with the coffee that's in the spritz. But for this, I'm going to tap and get a puddle. And you can see it spritz in different places. That's fine too. But I like to put some puddles on and then just tilt the card up and let them run and do their thing. You can even tap it a little bit. And then that gets some coffee runs on it. And then I'm going to again hit that with the dryer. If you were doing like mass making these, you could just set it to the side and let it dry on its own. And then the other thing you can do is with what's left here and what's in your brush, you can just tap around. And I'm using this brush because it's already loaded. You can use the small one as well to do the same thing. And then just keep turning it. And just get some splatters on if you like that look. You can also then take your paper towel and just blot them, and then they just kind of fade into the background if you don't want them quite so prominent. Okay, so let's hold that up to what it looked like to start with. So you can see the different, or how this one looks aged. And then of course, if this was going to be a tag or a journaling card, till you maybe round corners and go around it with the dauber, that looks really nice. Okay, let's try another one. And again, I'm going to put out some of the ink. This time we're going to mix it with some of the coffee instead of just using plain water. Either way works. And then I'm going to dip it. Using the coffee just gives it a little more of an aged look than using the water, but either way works for any of these techniques. Okay, so then that provides some really cool designs there too that you could let run and just kind of let it do its thing. And then when it's gone as far as you think you want it to go, then you can blot it with a paper towel, or you can just go right to drying it. So I did want to show you something like, actually, let's just put, I'm going to put just like a dot right there. And I want to show you how I can get that to dry so it has that outline like that. And it's going to be noisy, sorry. But I'm going to hold my heat gun, or if you have a hair dryer, whatever you're using, if you hold it at an angle for quite a while and not come at it straight down, you can get the darker edges around there. So it kind of dries the middle of the puddle, but leaves the outline, and that gets darker than the center. And you can see it's doing it the whole way up here. And then when you think you're done, if you still have a puddle there, you can go over the top with it, or I just blot it up with the paper towel. Okay, so we have a really cool looking coffee mark there. Now let's, so this is all dry. So I'm going to put another layer. Let's put some walnut stain in with this so we have two different things going on here. And again, we could dip it again, or you can use the paintbrush. And then I would just let those sit up again. So we're building layers. So we dipped it first and then just tilted it and let some of that run. Then we did some more with the brush and the spray bottle and just let that set and blew it dry from the edges. And then the other thing, if you do have the coffee, you can just give it some spritzes and let them set up and dry. And that's kind of the same as when we were tapping with our brush. You just get those little spritz marks. So you could do that either way. All right, so I wasn't filming for that last part, but I blew it dry and then I just dipped my brush in just plain water. And if you just do that and flick it at it, turn the dryer on it for just a couple of seconds, and then take your paper towel and just blot it, you get these lighter marks where the water has picked up the ink. So that looks really cool as well. Another little tip to have in your toolbox there. I'm going to move down here so I can get some of my scrap paper more dyed as well. Okay, so I put some more walnut stain out here. This is all dry. We dipped it in the burlap and let it run, and then we spritzed it and we used our paintbrush on some. Now I have walnut stain down here, and I'm going to just do the same thing over the top and just see if I can get some even darker areas on here. And again, you wouldn't necessarily put all of these on one sheet of paper. I'm going to let it run again. And like I said, we're building up layers so the effect has some depth to it. I'll let that sit a minute and then I will dry it again. Okay, so we're going to call that one done for now, and that's what we started out with and looking like that. So just giving you some techniques, and now we're going to just take a piece of book page. I'm just going to make it small so it doesn't take so long on the video. And I put out some more walnut stain and added a little bit of water to it. So you can, again, either dip it or use your paintbrush, or I also have this dry brush that I had picked up at the Dollar Tree. It's in just like the health and beauty section, and it's meant to be a dry brush. It is kind of has a little bit of more of a rough bristle to it. But if you dip that in and soak up some of that ink, you can just apply that onto your paper. Now, I don't wash mine out in between uses, so there may be other colors that'll end up coming out on here. And then sometimes I also get like little flecks of dried ink, but I just let it go because I think my walnut stain is about out. I just let it go because it just adds to the texture and the look of the aged paper. All right, so we're getting this one aged up just with this brush, and you can see it just gives another kind of look to it. It's kind of leaves some like, almost looks like scratch marks or something. So you can go as little, as light or as heavy on that as you would want to. Then the next thing I'm going to do for this is I have a lid that is just off of a bottle of shoe polish that I had shown in one of my videos for some reason. And it's still sitting on the desk. So I just took the lid off of that. You can use any lid that you have based on the size that you want. But what we're going to do is just dip the lid in here, and we're going to get some copy rings on our paper. So I just hold it there for a little bit to let the ink soak into the paper. You can twist it a little, and then it kind of bleeds and looks really nice on the paper. You can also, I'll do it on a bigger one down here. You can also put it down and then slide it a little, and then you get a little wider band on it as well. So that's how I do the copy marks. It is very easy. You can put as many or as little on as you want. And then to finish this one off, we could just do some splatters again, or we could get a puddle going here and just kind of let it run. And then you can see this is what it started out as, and it aged it very nicely. Now I'll just show you one final piece where I'm just going to kind of put all those techniques together, and we will just age this piece, but I'm going to fold it in half and just do half of it so it doesn't take as long, and so that then I can unfold it and show you the difference. Oh, actually I forgot to show you one other thing. Hang on, let me get one more card. I had one other technique to show you that I forgot about. Okay, so I'm going to take a stencil and I'll show you what we're going to do, but we're going to end up with this where you can just vaguely see some birds in the background, and I'll show you two different ways to do that. In fact, we will just divide the card in half here, and I'll just ink it so we can see what we're doing. And I'm going to show you on this side, I'm going to use just my regular distress ink. I'm sorry, I know this is going to shake the camera a little bit. So I'm not going to be real particular here. All right, so we got a couple on there, and now on this side, I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to use the permanent ink. Okay. So for this one, it's just going to look a little bit different, and I'll show you the difference. That is the only time I would use my permanent ink for what we're doing here. All right, so I'm going to put out, that was what? That was Vintage Photo. I'm going to put out a little bit of the frayed burlap. And we're going to use the brush. And on this side, I'm just going to coat it. And then you can see the birds are kind of disappearing into the background. And that is because we used the distress ink, and now the water is reacting to that. So it is just setting them back further into the paper. So now if I do the same thing on this side, they are going to stay there and be a little bit more prominent than the ones on this side. You can also take your heat tool and just make sure they're good and dry before doing this part. Okay, I'm going to dry them now. Okay, and I don't know how well it's showing up on the camera, but you can see these are more muted. And then where the ink ran, it even kind of left a little bit of an outline around them. So we're going to go back in with a little bit more. This time we're going to use the walnut stain, if I can get any more out of there. And we're going to, again, build it up. And let's just do it this way this time. You also don't even have to make it wet if you don't want. You can just tap it right on your ink pad and go in and get some coffee dye or get some coffee rings that way too. And if you wanted them then a little more muted, you can just tap over them and they just kind of blend in. So it's a lot of trial and error, a lot of just playing around with it. You're not gonna mess them up. And then we can spritz that one, or if you have a splatter stamp, you can use one of those too. And just put some splatters around, and then same thing as with the coffee rings, you can go back in with your wet brush and just kind of tap them and set them back into the background a little bit more if you want. Okay, so that is that one that started out looking like that, aged. Okay, so for this last part, I'm going to use one of these sheets out of the newspaper book that I had showed you in my last thrift haul, and also in that journal, the little golden book journal. So I'm just folded it in half because I don't want to take the time for this video to do the whole thing. And so I can show you a before and after when we are done. So for this one, you can start out with, well, let's just start out with water. You can also just start out with the coffee spritz if you want. I'm just going to do half of it. My water is tinted from dipping the brush in before, but so we're going to make our paper wet, not sopping wet that it tears, but a little bit wet. And then I have frayed burlap on my dauber, and I'm just very gently going over top. And again, same as I showed you on that first one that was dry, we're just barely touching it. And I'm going around in light circles. And you can kind of feel where it's no longer wet. Oh, that time I did pick that up. But you can do that too and smear it around with your brush. But let's just continue with this with the water. The thing about doing it this way too is your paper gets that old feel. It's going to be wrinkly and crunchy and have that old paper feel to it. So you can see already the difference that is making. And I'm just barely going over it with the paintbrush. I'm not making it so saturated that it's getting holes. I'm going to dry that and I will be right back. So now I have it nice and dry, and we're going to do the rest of this with it dry. I'm not going to make it wet again, but I am going to do a second coat. Making it look splotchy so that it kind of aged in different areas. This has this nice tattered edge, so we could get that. I don't like all that gray there, so let's beat that up a little bit. Okay, so then I put out more of the walnut stain. I'm just gonna saturate my brush here a little bit. Let's even just put out some coffee. get some of those drips. So I'll put out some puddles and let it run. We can just use more ink, or you can just use the straight coffee for this. And then some places I'm just going to leave some puddles that I will go back and dry. Okay, so now I put out some more frayed burlap and some water, and I'm just going to take my brush. And again, I had said you could do it with this brush also. You just get a lesser amount, smaller blobs. That works too. And then to finish it off, we can see if this is dark enough to show up. Do some coffee rings. Okay, I'm going to give this a dry, and then we will compare it to the other side. All right, and there we have our beat up grungy newspaper. You could keep going, or you could have stopped a long time ago. Just, you know, go for whatever look you are wanting for whatever journal you are working in. Here is what we started out with. So you can see the difference there with that. So we went from that stark white to this lovely coffee dyed, and then I've got a good... Okay, so as you can see, I would just keep playing and playing with these, but I hope that gives you some ideas, and it's just really helpful too for times that, like when I was in the middle of putting the signatures together for that journal and decided, I think I want this coffee dyed, or the coffee dyed look, but I don't want to go set up the whole coffee dye bath and do that. So it is just a great way to age the paper with inks, with a little bit of the spritzed coffee if you want. The other thing I didn't do that you could, when you have it nice and wet, you can take some granules of coffee and just sprinkle it over the top while your paper is wet, and that makes a really nice effect also. Let's try it on here where we need a little something. And then the coffee just starts to kind of dissolve and bleed into the water that you put down. So you can just let that go for a while and then let it dry, or dry it. And then when it's done, then what didn't stick will just wipe off. Okay, so I hope this inspired you today to just grab some paper and see if you can use some of these techniques and make it look aged as little or as much as you want it to. And I thank you for hanging out with me today, and I will see you next time.